All right, I am live at the Red House with my friend Kyle Caudle. Thanks for coming over.
It's good to be here.
So, what you up to, man?
Well, today I'm sitting in a red chair in the Red House, and that's feeling good. I've been in this room quite a few times recording lately, so it's been good as well, man.
This is true. So, let's talk about your recording project. We're right in the middle of it. We've laid down a lot of songs, at least the foundation of a lot of songs. So, I guess I think obviously we've already talked about this once or twice, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit on what was the inspiration to get this going at this stage, at this point in your life.
For sure. I've been writing songs for many years now, and sometimes I'd write those for other people, sometimes for bands that I was in and that kind of thing. And I have a family and work and things like that. So obviously, a lot of songs I did for a little while, I just kind of took a step back as far as recording and performing, but was still writing a ton. And so had just been accumulating so much material over the past few years. And I guess for many people, the pandemic happened, and for all of us, it happened. Yeah, it kind of showed up there and affected a few of us a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think that gave a lot of us maybe the opportunity, if you want to use that word, just to look into ourselves and ask questions about what am I doing, or what should I be doing, what am I creating. And I really realized that's something I want to do and create more and put out some more material. Figuring out how and what to do is a little different, but and I think some of that was like, when I reached out to you, was just like, hey, let's put some of this stuff down. We kind of talked a little bit about the concept, I know, and kind of your approach to some of your recordings and stuff, and it's very song centered, and I liked. And I feel like we've at least from what we've scratched out and got started as far as tracks, it feels like there's a lot of different directions the project could go, but I think it's starting, like, as we've put down. How many have we put down now? Has it been like 15 maybe, or something like that?
Yeah.
So, obviously some of those are just going to be, they'll fall to the cutting room floor, I guess, but others will emerge and be completed and kind of shape up to be hopefully a nice full length.
So what about this? You said song forward. That's different, I guess, than other approaches.
It's like your approach to recording or whatever.
I mean, even yours. Like, just what does it mean for you? Like, I guess I take it from you saying that for you, this is more about being a songwriter than it is about putting together a rock album, putting together a soundscape.
Yeah. I guess we could talk a little bit about like songwriting process. And I heard you the other day talk some about yours. And it's really interesting. Sometimes I will start with words, and I have all these notes on my phone, and I'll like start with a phrase sometimes, and maybe it'll just sit there forever. Maybe I'll come back to it and say, oh, you know what if I did this? Or I could do a voice memo. Sometimes that's just singing a cappella in the car or something, that something comes to mind. Sometimes it's on a walk or hike or something. But yeah, just shaping up. And then, but I obviously, like, I really do hear a soundscape, but, and I'm, but it is very song forward in that I want to convey at least a moment. And I think that's what good poetry does, is it like conveys this little slice of something that happens in the world. And I think that's what songs do as well, obviously put to music. And so, I hope that I've captured a lot of small moments like that. But I think, speaking of like a song forward approach, I think that means really trying to capture that moment. And I've been, in the rock bands before where, you come up with a riff and then you add to that, and you keep building music by music chunk, and then the lyrics are the last thing. Mm-hmm. You get everything in place and then it's just filler. And sometimes great songs emerge that way. But I've really kind of worked together, and I feel like the kind of the words and the music, in some ways, they kind of shape one another. And so I don't try to feel too attached to any specific word in the whole, as long as I'm getting that idea across. And so I'm always editing, if you will.
You've been you play different instruments. You've been a
Sure.
bass player.
Yeah.
You've been a probably guitar player or something, or other.
Yeah.
Have you always been in your musical whatever in your musical life? Have you always been writing songs as well?
Actually, I think when I was like in middle school or something, I started playing saxophone. And yeah, that was my first foray into musicality, and I liked it. Okay, the part I liked about it was just being in my room by myself and playing. Once you put the music in front of me and the pressure of like trying to compete for first chair and all that stuff, it was terrible. And middle school's a terrible time anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah, but that was just where I would just melt down, having to try out for my seat. But playing alone was fine. And then later I had some friends say, hey, we started a band. We need a bass player. So anybody can do that, you don't need a lot of skill,
No offense to you bass
got
players
four,
out there.
Yeah, 4 strings. Here you go. You may only need 2 of those strings at first, right?
Yeah.
And so they handed me that, and then, I just imagine that they handed me this bass. But no, actually, I started with this. I traded my saxophone in with my mom, and we traded my saxophone in. This was in Columbia, South Carolina, and traded that saxophone in and got I think it was a Squier 2 P bass, black with a maple neck. That was my first bass. And then right after I started playing with the guys, they're like, oh, yeah, you're going to be our singer. And I don't even know if they've ever heard me sing. So I was writing songs from then on, And I don't want to see or hear those songs. Thankfully, we didn't record those. But over the years, kept playing more and actually I got about 4 years later. So I always think I was like, it was in high school when I got a bass when I first started that. And then sometime after high school is when I bought a acoustic guitar and started learning that way. And so a lot of times I would write acoustically, even starting with rock bands, but always be playing bass in the bands. So and singing, which is a little different than most bands, but not unheard of either.
So what time period, these songs that you and I are recording now
Sure.
for your new record, kind of how far, like, I guess I want to connect the time difference between when you're in middle school doing that and now. Like, did you write all that time? Did you take a break from all that?
Sure. So actually, this album is it's all my middle school songs, and it's just reinvented. It's they're very emotional and introspective and really
saxophone
searching.
heavy.
Yeah,
too.
saxophone heavy. There is a couple solos. I was really listening to some Springsteen at the time, and it was, Clarence. Big inspiration.
Right.
In all seriousness, though, I would say approach very different now. I mean, most of the songs we're recording, I've definitely written within the last 2 years, or at least finished within that last time, and some even recent. I mean, I've brought some since we began this project. I've brought new songs to the table, and I think they'll actually kind of shape up where it's going and kind of given some direction as far as that goes. But I don't know that.
So you're in that band writing songs for that. And I guess were all that time in between then and now where you're like, now you're behind your own name.
Yeah.
Were you involved in a bunch of different musical
Yeah.
projects?
So I was like, I had, this one band, it had like some of the same guy. Some of it was the same guys that I first started playing music with in high school when we were like college age or whatever. We started playing together. Some guys went on to do more lucrative things in life, but some of us stuck together for a few years at least. Released an album, toured on that. The funny thing at the time, and I've been trying to research this online because this was like early 2000s. So this is like before stuff's like everywhere. Our CDs are probably in some Goodwill somewhere now. But we got a good review, a favorable review in Punk Planet, and I thought that was the best thing ever. But I didn't save a copy, of course. But it's true, I promise. But yeah. So and then there's guys, as things do, they went on tour. We toured as far north as North Dakota, far south as Texas, and all around. So I got to see a lot of things, and that was great. But then that summer, I got home from tour and I got married, and so. But then, I mean, it didn't really stop my music, but I definitely toured a lot less then. And lost some members, kind of reformed that. And then I went to UNCG, and when I did, I just got so immersed in my studies that I really didn't do a lot of music for a little while. And got out and wanted to play again. My brother Caleb, he was starting to play then and write his own songs. He's a little bit younger than me, and I just came along and said, I'll give you a little bit of help. I'll play bass with you. And so I think he was playing under his own name at the time. But then we started some band called the Lowlands together and played with him to that. And then we had some other members that probably wanted to push that band in a more rock direction. And I think Caleb was still wanted to push in a more songwriter type direction. And so we continued playing together. But he did like a solo album, and then that became Caleb caught on the Bayonets, and then that became the Bayonets. And so then he went solo again down the road. But we did quite a few albums together. I think we did probably like four albums, I believe we did together. And I would say even during that time, like I was really helping with arrangements and musicality in the songs. Some of the recordings at that time, I was doing electric guitar on, some rhythm and bass, of course, and then writing maybe a quarter or 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 songs, something like that, contributing that to the band. But definitely more of a arranger in that role. And then, but since then, I released an EP in 2016 and recorded that with Jeff Crawford in Chapel Hill. Had some really good players on that. Really enjoyed that, but then just had some things going on in life and kind of walked away from it a little bit for a little while. But still writing and still playing. That's still a passion. But now trying to share it with more people.
Yeah. What's it like? I mean, is it hard to? Is your music identity like the part of you that wants to be creative and all that stuff? I guess it's cool now that you don't have to travel and tour and all that stuff to be a successful musician necessarily. But yeah, I guess we're all aware that thing about when you have this other part of your life, when you have professional responsibilities and family responsibilities, sometimes it's hard to maintain those while trying to be creative. Has that been the case for you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I guess it's a struggle. I think like it's a success if to even play or write that song or record that song in a way is kind of a success at that point, which is really funny because like, and any musician, you're like, we want to make it, once you realize you love music and that's what you want to do, you want to make it, whatever that is. It's like, and every step you get towards that, it's always like, oh, we got to do more. It's got to be bigger. It's got to, that kind of thing. And I think I realized, like it's more about making the music than making it as success. And so, like for me to deny myself like just the joy of writing and creating music is really, that would be to harm myself in a way, like if creativity is something you love, then you have to do it, or it's gonna end up it's not gonna end up well for you. And so I think I've had to shift, I guess, exactly like how creativity manifests, and I can do it a lot of ways. I mean, of course, I have plenty of ways in my life, whether it's like house plants or gardening or cooking or whatever that you can manifest creativity. But again, like if your main passion or whatever is music, then that still needs attention and it needs to happen. So I think it's definitely a shift, like when that can't be, or maybe it could be, but just trying to find more room for that in my life. And I think I have, and I find that a success in a way.
Yeah, I say sometimes that I think with my experience with sort of when I walked away from it for a while or whatever, it's like I say sometimes that the art and creativity, whatever joy that you can derive from them and however good it can feel to do all that, that's equally how bad it can feel to not do it for some reason. To be neutral about your own creativity, it's like a gnawing thing. It feels bad.
Yeah, I have noticed just this kind of this cyclical thing in life. So if I step away from music long enough, then I either get like down or depressed or something, and I had this need to create. Was there anything like that for you that you stepped away that kind of like something's, you called it a gnaw, I guess, but was there something that made you take that direction to write that next song or do that next thing?
Yeah. I, in so many words, I mean, I was just watching myself become something else, and like I knew that something was wrong, and I didn't know exactly how to correct it, because for me it wasn't like I stopped being creative or whatever. I stopped making music for a time out of just like being bored with it or something. It was, I felt really nihilistic and really defeated and stuff in areas of my life. And so that was almost like a punishment. Was like I can't create things because whatever. Fuck it. I don't know how to say it other than that. Well, I can't create things cuz I'm too fixated on how bad everything is or something. And that's weird because my life was pretty stable at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I had a job that I liked okay and everything. It wasn't like my life was terrible, but I was watching myself away from that just become this more bitter and less a person with less of a clear direction. So yeah, it bothered me real bad, and that's what I mean. It's like whatever it was an equal amount, whatever that thing is that I feel positively when I am being creative and kind of leaning into my own potential, I feel in the total opposite direction when I'm like denying myself that responsibility of trying to pursue my own positive potential.
And to me, that kind of like brings out, there's a difference between creating something and then sharing what you create.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like a big struggle, I think, for a lot of artists and creatives. But I don't know about you, but like I can, dream all day about how I imagine things, and like just live in my own little worlds that I create in my head. But then like it's a legit like fear, like to actually share something with people. How's it going to be received? Are they going to like it? Are they going to get as much value out of it as I put in it? That kind of thing. And so I think that's why a lot of people, that's kind of the easier thing to do, is just to quit creating or to walk away. I mean, I think a lot of people do that. I mean, I probably did at times, and rather than to share. And then the craziest thing that I like keep seeing is like, so I share something and then people connect with it, and it's like, oh, why did I hold this back when it's something, it's like a gift someone needed to receive, so I think that inspires me, things like that, when people do connect with something I share.
Yeah, man, it is. There's something about sharing it. There's something about it being visible that seems necessary to the whole thing, and that's something I don't really fully grasp or understand. Like, why is it that its visibility, matters so much? But it does. It makes a huge difference whether you share it with people or not.
Yeah, I don't know if it's something in certain people that they just, like, I know this guy, he's an older man, great carpenter, creates these beautiful wood turn bowls and stuff. And like, he just has this basement workshop just full of these things. And I'm like, he'll give them as gifts occasionally, but he does nothing to celebrate it. He, kind of passes it off. Oh, it's nothing. But I mean, it's pretty amazing stuff. I mean, I could never do that, and I don't know, maybe certain people's personality, they want to share more than others. I don't know. But I feel like we always want to get noticed for something that we bring to the world,
Yeah.
And it's just, I just wonder how we do that,
How we do. So do you mean how we...
Like, does that mean like putting a podcast out there in the world so that everyone can hear it, or anyone can, or does that mean, I just share it with a few friends around me? Like,
right.
I don't know. I don't know those kind of things.
I don't either. Yeah. I all I know is, or all I suspect, all I notice in myself is that creative thing seems to want to connect with people. That desire to create and be an artist seems to want to connect with other people. And when I'm not trying to do that, it's worse than trying to do it and it not being as successful as it hypothetically could be.
Yeah, I've heard this guy, I think his name's James Hillman, but he talks about what is trying to come into the world through me. So it's almost as if there's like this energy, if you will, that needs to go somewhere, right? And so as a songwriter, I mean, what songs are trying to come into the world? I mean, obviously they wouldn't. It's because I mean, and this kind of goes back to the writing, but like, I mean, where do songs come from? You know, sometimes the easiest songs to write took you the longest to get to the point where you could even write them. You know, and some of them I work on just for years before, and then I'm like attached to it, but it never gets finished. You know, but it's just weird how that works. It's like certain things just want to happen, and so just kind of letting yourself be faithful to that, to let it happen through you. But
So where do you think songs come from?
yeah, so I mean, obviously, like experience, inspiration, imagination, those kind of things. But I don't know. Like, it's strange. Like, a line or a melody comes to you, and it's like, well, how? I mean, it's not like you. I know some people who are super disciplined songwriters that are like, I'm going to write 5 songs a day. They see it as that's their kind of discipline. It's never really worked that way for me. I don't know if it has worked that way for you.
No.
It still does require me to sit down, but usually like it's just I'm either thinking about something, like I have a couple of songs on this, hopefully that will release as singles before the full length project, but it really just started around these characters. And, I just thought about this person and, what would it be like to be them? And then just kind of a song came out of that. And so it was more just kind of like, that was more of an imaginative kind of thing. Sometimes other songs would just come out of some feeling I have. I wouldn't say they come out of thin air though. I mean, they definitely seem, it's what we put in. I feel like, that's how they come to you.
I get confused about it. 'Cause if I think of it as just like, if I dismiss it too much as just like a normal thing, that it's just like, don't glorify it, it's just creativity, it's just writing words or whatever, then it loses something for me, because I think it is more significant than just that. I don't think it's just a craft. I don't think it's just something to be cast aside like it's the most normal thing in the world, because some people look at it and say, I just can't do that, and I don't understand how to do that. I have also heard, I guess when you entertain something like that, and I think you'll know what I mean, but sometimes you can fill that mystery with a lot of answers, like that it's ordained by God, or that it's like like the universe has the intent that you are a successful and wealthy musician, or different things like this. And it's like those attaching those conclusions to this mystery of creativity and of songwriting, I think can be a bit slippery.
That made me think though, like I've exactly thought that. Like, people will come to you, I don't know how you could write a song. And these people, they may be good musicians or this, I don't know how you could do that. But my thought to that is like, I don't know how you could not do that, And I think that's like if you do write songs, I mean, it's like, you couldn't do it. I mean, you can't not do it. I mean, you could, you could try to quit for 3 years or whatever, and, be mopey and that kind of thing, but it's going to come out eventually. Like, once if you're wired for that. So, I just feel like it's more of like an identity or a calling in a way, if you will. But yeah, I've always, when people say, I don't know how you could do that, I'm like, I don't want to say it's not hard, but like, it's like, no, you just kind of do it,
Yeah.
I mean, I can write a bad song very quickly,
Sure.
I know, but but the ones that are truly good, I mean, how much control do you have over if they're truly good or not? I mean,
control? I don't suppose control would be.
No, it's not. I mean, there's things you can do to improve, but really, those things, you just try to ride them out if those good ideas come to you, I guess.
I think you can have certain standards and stuff, and you can try to understand your voice and your craft as deeply as you can. I think, I don't. It's like, I guess some artists, or the abstract or hypothetical idea of an artist comes to mind, that's like somebody who's writing songs that they don't love. And it's like, you don't have to write the song that you don't love. You can whatever your standard is of what you think makes a great song, you can like aim for
Yeah.
that and
Yeah.
try to write that song.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I mean, there are some people who, I don't know, some people who they dance and they don't, that's how they express
Mm-hmm.
themselves in their
Yeah.
passion
Mm-hmm.
rather than with words and with sound. Some people write scripts or poems or whatever, but they don't have music. Some people do journalism. You know, I can understand people not connecting to every aspect of what it is to write a song,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it gets a little, I guess what I'm saying is that some songwriters, I think, give into the notion that it's extremely spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
and some people minimize it down to something superficial. And I
Like
don't,
mechanical.
mechanical,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think I try to fall somewhere in between those two things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you have to have the mechanics down, but that alone, I don't. What's the lasting power of something? I feel like the really really good stuff it lasts in some kind of way. But I admire people who don't write the songs but have that gift of like being able to like interpret a song. So they'll cover songs but like do it in a beautiful way and make the song even better. And some people are really good in that way, like knowing which song to choose. Okay, that's something that relates to me. I can sing that and express kind of what that song means. And sometimes it even elevates the original expression of that song because it's something that really connects with them. So that's never really been my kind of way of doing things, but I do admire people that can do that.
What is it that you can look at some of the songs you've written and be like, these are some of the favorite things? What are some of the traits that you enjoy about your songs?
Yeah. So I kind of like I kind of feel like in some ways my songs kind of fall into kind of two categories. Sometimes the songs have both. And just very broadly, I mean, I think they're either kind of spiritual or existential. And so, a lot of my more character-driven songs, I think they're dealing with some person that's like is dealing with, a tough situation or like this trying point in life. So, for example, like this song "Misstep" I did on my EP. It's written first person, but it's like imagining like here's this public figure, probably a politician or something, and like what if you have to make this confession? Like, so say you had this big transgression, this big scandal. What would it mean if you told the truth? Because like I feel like we get those false apologies, that people are like, well, I'm sorry you felt that way, or I'm sorry, but like for somebody to really own like, I did this bad thing, but what about you? And I feel like we're like even now. I mean, that song was written like 5 or more years ago, but I mean, we're kind of living that as a society now. But it's like, okay, like where does forgiveness play into this? Where does owning up to one's own faults come into this? Like all that stuff. So that's like a very existential kind of thing, that song. And I think I think my 2 singles that are coming out, I think they fit into that kind of broad category. Like what does success look like? What does desire look like? What does addiction look like? Those kind of things. And kind of getting into those characters. And then like, spiritual quality, I mean that very broadly, but it's kind of like sense that there is something more, and like it's kind of like on the edge of something you're like driving you and like moving towards that. And like but yeah, I think both those qualities kind of show up in songs. I mean, I guess broadly, stylistically, my songs are kind of folk, rock, Americana, kind of, in that kind of thing. But I'd say content-wise, those are kind of the themes I generally deal with. I'm trying to think of ones that don't fit in those categories. Those are so broad, they kind of do fit in those two ones. And sometimes they're both,
Do you feel like talking about some spirituality, and is that subject something that you'd like to leave out of this conversation?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to see where this goes.
Okay, I'm just curious. I guess one thing do you want to mention at all what you do for a living?
Sure. Yeah. So like, well, I'll tell you what I studied first. Like, so, I went to UNCG and studied religious studies, and I kind of like and I loved it. Like I was kind of bumbling around in college. I quit 2 times to play music. But just kind of like, I like school, I'm kind of good at it, but then I also, dropped out one time, and like I could have like done the add drop thing and got out scot-free, but I decided not to do that, and so failed those classes. And so I came back with this really horrible GPA. But then I got into religious studies, and man, I just blew it out and actually brought my GPA back up to a modestly respectable 3.1 or something like that. But it was kind of finding that direction, and it's really weird. Like the course that drew me in, it was, I mean, you're talking like, this is like early 2000s or something like that. So, I mean, the first course I took in religious studies at UNCG was on radical Islam, and I mean, of course, like the context culturally, I mean, you're having like, after the World Trade Centers and all that. So like that was relevant. It was interesting. I say interesting because we had, one student in the class. I mean, the only one. I mean, poor guy. Like he was from, I believe he was from Saudi Arabia, and like he has a bunch of like, American students with him. And like, so you're talking about courses that like, this is his tradition he's dealing with. And then other people that don't understand you and are probably making judgments about you. And it's like, he's just trying to get his education and then go back to his country, but I really got into that class, and, then I started taking some classes and really got into kind of like American religious history. And so when I say that, like, I mean, like, looking at like the big figures of early American religion, from the Puritans like Jonathan Edwards to people like the Transcendentalists like Emerson, Thoreau, Whitman, and just kind of got just a broad view, which was a lot bigger view than kind of I had even growing up, just kind of as like a Baptist in the South, and just, and I was, first generation college student. So like it just encountered a lot of different people and voices, but I just found it super interesting. Took one class on Native American religion, and then took some on Judaism. And so, but just really enjoyed just kind of the broad thing there. Ended up afterwards, I had no idea what I was going to do after that, so ended up working with students and in Winston-Salem, and did that for a while. And then I went to Wake Forest Divinity School in Winston-Salem. And so after I did that, I ended up working at a bakery after I got a divinity degree. So I had a master's degree and working at a bakery, and then things happened where I ended up working at that same church in Winston-Salem again, and that kind of led one thing to another, and eventually I went into ministry, and so I serve as a pastor at a Baptist church, and so that's my vocation, if you will. So, but yeah, kind of a winding road to get there, I guess, in a way.
I find that interesting. Religion has been a subject you and I have had the ability to talk about here at the studio as we've worked on things. And I guess I don't know where to take that conversation.
Do we want to start a debate between
I don't
theism
think so.
or atheism? No,
I don't think so. I think I just mean to say that I think you're the impression I have of the way that you treat the subject of faith, the subject of religion, I feel like makes more sense to me than the way that I was raised around it. Sure. I'm not asking you, or I'm not inviting you to like criticize faith in any way. I guess I'm just acknowledging that there has been a big shift culturally in the world that has challenged traditional religious views, and you seem to be somebody who is kind of situated in a place where you're not adding to the problem. You're kind of in a space where you have a more moderate approach. Sure,
I definitely do. I think like I've just and I mean I think to live honestly in 21st century, 20th century, whatever, is to deal with doubt. Whether you are religious or not religious, I mean, I think doubt is is just a reality that I think everybody lives with. But I will say, for me, like I think I'm probably more doubtful of human institutions than I am of God, And so, like for me, that's one thing. Like I may be very critical at times. I know, like I'm, even being part of the religious institution myself, like, I can be critical of that, and even critical of myself in that, but still, like, there's something about it. Like, I'm just like not wired, and for whatever reason, to not believe in the beyond or God or whatever. That's just not some. I mean, I've tried that, and it's just not who I am, you know. So, but I do believe, like, in a sense of curiosity, and I think most people, obviously, there's certain people that are, you know, die hard atheists. And if that's your thing, that's okay. I find more interesting conversations when people who can deal with uncertainty. And so I find, like, sometimes, so you have, like, for example, just like to paint broadly, but like fundamentalist Christians are very certain this is exactly how everything is, and if you aren't on board with this certainty, then the whole thing breaks down. But then if you find, like, you got people like Richard Dawkins and stuff on the you know, on the atheist side of things, that they're kind of the same way, though. It's like, you know, we can't believe in that because we have to have this certainty that there is nothing. And I just find it so much more interesting in the middle.
Yeah.
So like, and that's not even like to debate, and I understand all those things. I'm kind of far less interested in kind of the rational arguments here or there, and I can talk about those. But, like, I just find it more. I just think part of being human, I think, is being drawn to something beyond. And I mean, I think that you brought it up yourself, like in talking about arts, that it's a spiritual thing. And I don't know what you mean by that when you say that, but I mean, it just seems like there's something, and this doesn't have to be supernatural, like even within the natural world, there just seems to be something kind of beyond what we can grasp as humans. And so I think, for me, I see that, you know, through a Christian lens, you know, but I understand other people. I think many people are at least curious, or at least kind of spiritually interested, and are a little bit more willing to kind of live into that uncertainty.
Yeah. I think part of the reason that our conversations so far on this subject have been surprising to me is because, when I challenged the certainty of being a fundamentalist, approaching Christianity from a fundamentalist perspective, not having the certainty was really shocking to me, for sure. It was like it disrupted the whole ability to look at it positively, because it felt like I had been bamboozled. But I think it's cool that you can be in the middle. And, like, as an example of that, when I was coming up, it was like I had conversations all the time about secular music being unapproved of by God, and how it was like you shouldn't make music that isn't just about being a Christian. And I've seen a lot of songwriters I've known over the years that have kind of made a shift where they're like, I got to stop making secular music. I got to orient my music toward my religion. And that's the only right thing there is to do. I could never, ever do that. I would never be able to do that. Even if I was a person devoutly of faith and stuff.
Sure.
Don't think I could agree to that barrier. And I'm wondering, I guess, how you've been able to stay kind of creatively liberated without that same thought about, like, well, every word I put out publicly, everything I create has to be about this part of my identity. Like, have you thought about that before?
Oh, of course, man. Like, so, like, I really didn't know we were going to go this direction. This is funny. Like, you know,
I hope, and if we're,
this is awesome.
If we're in uncomfortable territory,
this is awesome. So, like, I won't name the place, but there's a certain place in, I believe it was Statesville, North Carolina. And so, like, when we were bands coming through, like, a lot of us, like, were like former youth group kids, you know, whatever. And, you know, but we played in these bands. So we got in these bands, maybe in youth group or whatever, you know. I don't know where you started, if it was there or not. But, you know, you kind of get around some people, and, you know, like, we're the guys that like music, and, you know, you got these guys in the bands that, like, they're not really sure about the whole faith thing, but they really like playing guitar and drums and stuff. But you'd want to play and get booked at this venue, and, like, I had some friends, like, I mean, it's not the most edgy music, but like you had to submit lyrics to the venue, and of course they edited their lyrics down a little bit. And they even like, and when we played there, it was down, the funny thing is, I think the venue was called the Upper Room, but you actually played in the basement, so it didn't make a lot of sense. But I remember like they made the bands like we had to get in a circle after sound check and do a prayer together. And it was like everybody's looking at everybody. Okay, who's gonna be? Because each band, like say there were 3 bands, and there's old hardcore and indie shows, like you'd have 4 bands on the bill, whatever. So it was like you had to choose one guy, and so of course my band chose me, some other band chose them, and then you're just like, God, we just, let us rock tonight and be faithful, have fun, safe for the kids.
Interesting.
But it was just super weird, but like that's the only place I've ever been like that. But they were very intentional. Like you have to kind of fit the bill. Other ones were a little murkier, so it was like, okay, you can play in the church kind of side room because this other band, and there wasn't like a big. It's kind of cool in a way. I mean, I thought it was kind of like, I don't even know places that do that now. Like I don't even know how people find out about music, but like, I mean, obviously I do, but like it was a unique moment when like churches or whatever would just be like, hey, come play in our gym, just like high school bands. Just, and they like, some were very like, you have to completely fit the mold, and others were just like, oh, just come play. What's the worst things kids could be doing than playing rock and roll, bad rock and roll in a gym.
Mm-hmm.
But what was your question though? It was like about the line between secular, sacred, kind of how you navigate that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think being around enough of those scenes, like I thought like it just didn't feel authentic. And so I admired artists, obviously, Peter the Lion, Dave Bazan, he would kind of like swing it both ways. Like, kind of, I mean, at the time, I guess he still identified as Christian, but would be edgy and critical. Now I think he is more on the agnostic side of things, but I always admired kind of how he was able to navigate that world. However, I mean, I still think he probably appealed to a more Christian audience in some ways, or post-Christian audience. But yeah, I just always found that kind of distinction and really stark contrast between the two to just kind of be uncreative. I mean, they used to have these posters in like Christian bookstores. I don't know if you know these, and it was like, if you like Nirvana, then you need to listen to this band.
Oh man, I want to get one of those posters.
Yeah, I want one too. But it's always like a really bad version of the good thing. So it's like, if you like, Journey, you're gonna like this other really bad, But it really was. It was like they're really reaching, and it was like, what is the kind of Christian contemporary equivalent of, in sync? Like, what would that even be? Like, I don't even know. Like, but like they're like trying to like name all these different like 90s reference kind of things, and even they would even throw back to like that's why I mentioned Journey, I guess, but they would even throw back to the 70s and stuff. But interesting poster. I just always found that weird because it was always the people like on the right side of that list, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of just want to, I kind of like that Nirvana thing, or I'd rather just listen to that. But so yeah, that kind of felt weird, and then and then you kind of learn, and it just, you interact, and if you've been to enough kind of concerts, you see that a lot of the musicians are put into this mold, and like, so you need to say, if you want to have a successful album, you need to mention this word 5 times. Or and I don't know if there's a written rule, but it's kind of understand, you got to be. You can't just be like, write good songs. It just can't, and you have to be preachy about it, that kind of thing. Or you're expected to say, if you're going to play that venue, before the last song, well, let's just throw in a line there. Okay, everybody, let's every head bowed kind of thing, right and towards the end, and then you're off. And it's like, is art not good enough? Like, so I think I've always kind of just struggled with that, and so like I just consider myself a songwriter, and so like I'm like I said earlier, I mean, like there's going to be existential and spiritual themes in my music. I don't feel like I think that's humans experience that. I don't think it's like something that needs to be limited to a certain audience and market niche necessarily. But yeah, I definitely think about that a lot. I mean, I think that was your question. Do I think about that often? I do. But I mean, for me, like, I don't really think about that for myself because, like, I kind of write what I see, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and I write how I see. And there are obviously certain songs because of my faith tradition or my faith experience or whatever that I'm not going to write, and there's certain ones that I am. And if you're looking really closely, you may notice some things. But I like to put it out there, and I mean, I think the best of. I mean, would you consider Shakespeare like a Christian artist?
Right.
You know, I mean, like, of course, like he's like quoting scripture and stuff. Like, there's great artists throughout history who have included things from various religious traditions. But I mean, are they exclusively a Christian artist? You know, I mean, no, they're just great artists. And if you know, I guess the stream of kind of Christianity I'm in, I mean, it was like, you know, is it beautiful? Is it true? Is it good? Then, like, where does that show up? Like Shakespeare, all that stuff.
Right.
You know, it shows up everywhere. There's all kinds of truth. Sometimes it's a hard truth, you know, like that ambition is not always good, you know, those kind of things that people don't last forever, like that there is, like, people have bad sides to them, but also, like, just the, you know, love, just the concept of love is just like this beautiful thing. But yeah, so yeah, thought deeply on those things.
Yeah, there's so many threads we could follow there.
Yeah.
One being like, I don't know, I'll just try to respond, I'll just try to say something that kind of captures all three because I found like three threads that I thought were worth following. But long story short is just when I was younger and when I was like in Christian school and all that stuff, that was the biggest beef I had, was just like, I cannot believe that this God that's a part of Christianity, I can't believe that he would be annoyed at the idea of me kind of trying to have a life that wasn't branded for Christianity all the time. And it's like, I don't know. It's like, as a creative person, I feel like maybe as creative people, it's a little easier to see through that fourth wall thing, see that everything is a production and everything is like an experience, and that, like, these Christian bands that used to be or that are big or whatever, it's not like they go on stage constantly in great moods, constantly just like wanting to, like, every moment of their life, like, I want to praise goodness all the time. They're doing their job of putting on that experience so that people can kind of have that worshipy experience thing. And that doesn't make it inauthentic in my view. It doesn't make it like a lie or anything.
Yeah.
It's just that presentation is one thing and reality is another thing. And for me, when I was like looking at what that meant, what I would have to sacrifice in order to like make everything I did creatively Christian branded, I was just like, I don't believe that any God cares about that. I think, like, I mean, the whole Bible ain't about Christianity, you know, like not every verse of the Bible, not every book,
like
of the
3/4
Bible.
of it is not.
You know,
I mean,
not to mention the Old
the
Testament,
Hebrew
but
scriptures are like very big part of that.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, even still, it's like there's so much variety in the Bible that's like used as, you know, the Bible's supposed to be the foundation of it's the scripture of the whole thing. Within that book, there's such variety of what's considered to be part of the word that God wants to get out. So I think it's just a little fear-based and a little overly protective to put out the message, like, if you're a Christian, you should only make songs that say that you're a Christian all throughout the song.
Sure.
I think if God cared about it, I think he would want you to probably have a more complete experience in life than that, you know.
Yeah.
It was my opinion.
Well, you know, I had forgot we had that kind of experience in common, that, you know, we went to those kind of like, what would you call them, like Baptist schools growing up, like those kind of things. And like, I did that through, I think, 6th grade, and my brother did only like through like 2nd grade. or something like that, maybe.
In South Carolina.
Yeah, but it was a very similar to like the place that you mentioned earlier. So it is this is certainty. I mean, there, like everything was certain, from like the clothes you wear to the way you cut your hair, to everything. And this brings up like, so the rumor, like when I was a kid in elementary school, was that if you go to a rock concert, like that the principal went to the rock concert just to find out if kids were there.
Right.
And like, but it felt so real at the time. Like I can't imagine a world where like the assistant principal or whatever at a Baptist school is going to like actively seek out and even know where a good concert would be to go to, but then be there just looking for kids at the school. But
We heard that too.
You heard that rumor too. So
Yeah.
it must have been a real thing. So yeah, maybe that was like maybe there was like some network of schools that did that. But yeah, so there is this kind of like, I think if you do kind of have that creative instinct, it is this kind of fear, like, is this going to be too out there? Like, how far do you go? You know, I think, so it is always kind of like, it's tough, you know, like how you deal with that. Though, again, I was given a bass guitar in a church youth group. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like there are bad things and there are good things, you know, and like, and that goes back, like, you know, my thing is not necessarily to write all like gospel songs, but there's some people that do it artistically and very good. Like, I mean, some people do that from a very authentic space, but I think a lot of this stuff, like if you hear on just kind of mainstream radio, it to me, it's not soulful. It's not, it covers such a small sliver. It's trying to check every box and not really living into, you know, sometimes you need a minor key to describe like the human experience. You know, sometimes it's not always lift me up. Sometimes it's like, man, let's lament for a while.
Yeah.
You know, you know, some people want to escape. I get that. Like if you're going through a tough time, you need something to lift you. But sometimes you just need to like deal with the feelings you're feeling, and you need to feel the feelings, you know? And so sometimes I feel like, you know, and that's where I would say like there's an industry, I guess, of religious music, and there's a difference between like, you know, there's some hymns that really capture a lot broader kind of human experience than whatever you hear on pop radio or whatever. You know? So it's complicated.
Yeah, I think of gospel music as in a totally different category than like Christian music.
Yeah, I'm kind of talking about like the kind of commodified. Maybe you could call it commodified Christian music.
100%. Yeah, the old stuff. There's something different to it. Like it's the same way. I mean, it's not like the religious traditions don't have a lot of interesting stuff in them. Like all of them do. But that new stuff, that contemporary stuff, yeah, it really
it sounds like bad Coldplay.
It does. Which, I mean, you know, you can apply those criticisms to a lot of popular music. Like popular music gets filtered a lot and then becomes this thing that's easy to package to, you know, a sort of a certain majority of people that I don't know how, which is also weird because like definitely the majority of people I know have pretty high standards about the music that they're into. So I don't really know why the industry works the way it does and why the marketing and all this stuff has worked this way for like 50 years, but it's not for me to figure out. All we're doing is trying to make some new music here that we actually enjoy.
That's right.
And we're making these songs on your stuff. Like we're going to put them out there. What are you going to do then? Or do you hope to like start playing more? Do you hope to get it shared with as many? But what are your aspirations?
I do hope to play more, and have been really this past year. I've been playing some more than I had, and obviously share it with more people. Try to find that audience. I mean, and this kind of goes back to that last segment we were talking about, or the last question. You know, it's like, well, who is that audience? Who are those people kind of in the middle that want to find some kind of songs that can reach them on a level that maybe they're not finding somewhere else? And so definitely kind of in search of that, kind of rebuilding in a while, because again, I stepped back from a little while, but I'm wanting to share a couple singles. I'm going to share an album, so I hope to build up to that a little bit so I can release that and it be received well. And then after that, you know, I don't know, just keep creating. Like I have, I'm also separately right now writing material for another follow-up to the one we're working on. So but that'll be a little bit down the road. And it might even deal with some of the themes we were talking about earlier. It's kind of funny. I do have a song that relates to that. So
that's good, man.
yeah.
I've written some spiritual music
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah, there
last
you
few
go.
years.
Yeah, man. Have a little bonfire and sing some spiritual songs.
We definitely should do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, man, I think we're gonna get more opportunities to do more of this as
Sure thing.
as your project comes along. We're gonna probably we're gonna do some footage of you here in the house, some of our recording sessions, probably get some performance. So maybe we can pick this conversation up here in about a couple weeks or months or something.
That'd be great. Thank you, Tyler.
Well, thanks for coming over, man.
Yeah, of course.
Appreciate it.